My heart is so full as I look out at all your familiar faces. How far most of you have traveled to be with us this weekend. That is the gift of a gracious and loving family, and Roy and David join me in our heartfelt thanks. Over the years, I tried to get Papa Bear to tell me what he wanted for a memorial service. He was always vague. He knew for sure that he wanted David to do the music and Roy at his right hand. But the rest he left up to me. So here goes, folks. You'll notice two themes playing tag throughout the event. The musical motif, of course, is Abide With Me, and you'll hear variations arranged by Roy and David, especially for today. But instead of the usual homily and life sketch, descendants will help me highlight Papa Bear's quirks, characteristics, and favorite things. Papa Bear and I had a real conversation just a few days before he died. He was more lucid than he had been for weeks. He had trouble sometimes finding the exact word he wanted, but he clearly was trying to tell me that he'd been thinking a lot about his relationship with God and that he had no fears. I held his hand and read him several chapters from the Bible, including Psalm 91. We repeated the 23rd Psalm together. Just days later, I was browsing widely to try to find appropriate readings for this service. I reread Emily Dickinson's lines that he loved and appreciated, and probably a lot of you know them too. I never saw a moor, I never saw the sea, yet know I how the heather looks, and what a wave must be. I never spoke with God, nor visited in heaven, yet certain am I of the spot, as if the chart were given. And that was exactly what he was trying to say.
So you heard about the theme of Abide With Me. I want to tell you a little bit about why that's the theme, and also tell you to get out your piece of paper that has the Abide With Me music and things. It was in the 1970s. Papa Bear, as he was often doing, was finding wood to do art things with and turn on his lathe and different things. And he got a piece that had been a piece that was planed. It was a real piece of wood, but it had been left outside for a while, and it was decaying. And he got his wood burning tool, and he carved the words that you'll see if you look at the second stanza, the last two lines. Change and decay, in all around I see, O thou who changest not, abide with me. And so that's one of the things we're highlighting here. I want to tell you how we're going to sing this, because we're going to do two stanzas now, and then you'll see later on Roy is going to play a version that we're not going to sing with, but you can follow along with verses 3 and 4 for that. And then at the end we're going to sing the final stanza. One more thing before we sing Abide With Me. When you see Be Thou My Vision, and it says lyrics on the back, that's for you to follow along, but we're not actually going to sing that one. So don't want you to be the only one singing. So we're going to sing verse 1 and 2.
I've written scores of life sketches for family members, for friends, for hospice families, but I just couldn't fathom writing about Papa Bear. For one who seldom has writer's cramp, it was a dark black hole. How could I not honor my dearest with the most brilliant life sketch ever? Then grandson Marty and I began chatting on WhatsApp. He was capturing in what he was posting the essence of Papa Bear with vivid memories and minute details, using Papa Bear coined words and phrases. I realized that I was trying to force Papa Bear into the template that I normally used for life sketches. But we all know that Papa Bear could not be confined to any kind of a box. And once I gave myself the freedom to create, I began to envision a different way of looking at his life. So this afternoon, we're not going to have a chronological recitation. Instead, we'll feature symbolic objects and pictures that capture Papa Bear's qualities and values. And now, with apologies to the original writers and musicians, we present These Were a Few of His Favorite Things, performed by Deljean and nephew Dave.
Quiet aspen Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty.
I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust.
Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence.
He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart.
You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday.
1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you.
You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked.
If you say, "The Lord is my refuge," and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you, no disaster will come near your tent.
For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone.
You will tread on the lion and the cobra, and you will trample the great lion and the serpent.
Because He loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name.
He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him.
With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation.
Papa Bear was not a boring man. He was kind, curious, creative, exasperating, but he was never boring. I think all of us have our favorite Papa Bearisms and unique phrases that he created. I never went shopping. I gladdened the hearts of the merchants. The three-piece outfit that his parents gave him when he was graduated from Washington School of Law was always my lawsuit. Papa Bear surprised new acquaintances when he offered them a seat in the power recliner. Would you like to sit in the electric chair? Usually he got the last word, but one of the funniest exchanges I heard happened the day 3 years ago when we met with the Life Tribute owner, Jim Dirting, to talk about cremation plans and purchase our burning permits. Jim pulled out the necessary paperwork. He turned to Elvin first. After the usual name, date of birth, mother's maiden name, he said, occupation, retired. Before you were retired, Papa Bear saw his opening. I like to say that I was an undertaker. I would undertake anything that needed to be done. Jim smiled and nodded appreciatively. I'm a licensed undertaker, and I tell people I'm a professional boxer. Number ones. Papa Bear's first lathe was a foot-powered treadle model. Soon he upgraded it with a motor from his mother's old washing machine. And for the next 80 years, he found joy and satisfaction in crafting items on several lathes. During retirement, he had time to spend many days in his shop, also known as our two-carless garage. You'll see many more of his creations at the reception that follows this service. Thank you. Number twos. Quick change of costume here. Papa Bear is legendary for his jokes and pranks. I didn't even have to ask. Wendy and David automatically knew that the dual-purpose bit belonged at this event. So I don't need to repeat that story here. But another lesser-known anecdote is about the bone. In the 1970s, Papa Bear was good friends with Kit Watts. Kit had a lovely Cocker Spaniel Alpha, a bouncy dog who loved people, packages, and especially chewing. Because March was such a depressing month of mud, we created Alpha's made-up birthday for March 17, and each year Alpha enjoyed her party even more than her human friends did. Partygoers brought wrapped tins of gourmet dog food, toys, and old boots for Alpha to gnaw on. One year, Papa Bear was in the midst of reducing a huge oak tree to firewood. His driveway was filled with oak cookies. As he was splitting firewood one afternoon, he thought, I'm going to make that dog a bone. The bone was a huge hit at the birthday party, but eventually it ended up at the bottom of a trunk that got moved around the country. A couple of years ago, when Kit was downsizing in Milton Freewater, the bone surfaced. She presented it to Elvin at his 95th birthday, amidst much laughter. And as we were planning Elvin's 97th birthday party, we really wanted to have that bone. We thought it might be something that he would remember. But nobody knew where the bone was. Finally, to our great surprise, Cynthia's mother found it in the back of her guest room closet, and nobody knows how it got there. 4 weeks ago today, when this picture was taken, Elvin had a good day when a handful of us gathered around him to celebrate. And as soon as Kit walked in with the bone, he started grinning. He remembered it. And we all laughed even harder than we had 45 years earlier. Another Papa Bear prank had come full circle. Number threes. One of Papa Bear's greatest joys was hiking, especially in the Rocky Mountains. He discovered a hiking group in Buena Vista that met at Lowback's Bakery every week. The old coots didn't decide on a destination until they'd polished off their donuts and coffee, and then they'd head out to Ptarmigan Lake or the falls on Browns Creek or Davis Meadows. On these hikes, Papa Bear always carried this walking stick. He crafted it himself out of a branch of aspen wood, and it traveled thousands of miles, always in his right hand. Recently, as he became more unsteady, Roy and I tried to pry it out of his hand, and get him to use a pair of rubber-tipped walking poles. He would have none of it. He had a perfectly good walking stick. Within the past year, Papa Bear talked to me about that stick. He was serious when he said, "I hope somebody in the family will adopt it. I do not want it burned for firewood." All interested applicants apply after the service. Number 4s. Things didn't get much better for Papa Bear than the combination of hiking and family. To celebrate his 80th birthday, we had a descendants get-together in Buena Vista. Highlight of that celebration was a 4-generation hike up Huron Peak. Miranda, his oldest great-grandchild, was just 5, and Papa Bear was 75 years older. They reached the summit of that 14er together. Thank you. Number 5s. This one's taking a little time. Papa Bear loved to tell the tale of 2 bicycles, which began. In 1936, Roy Benton bought me a bicycle. In 2013, Roy Benton bought me a bicycle. His father gave him his first bicycle. Papa Bear rode that last silver bicycle faithfully until after his 95th birthday, when he decided on his own to give up riding around Wheatland 3 miles each day. Instead, he went to the Vitality Center and rode the exercise cycle there. But at the start of the pandemic, the Vitality Center was closed, so Roy set up Papa Bear's bicycle as a trainer on the back patio. And when it got too cold to ride outside, Roy moved it into my office. Shortly after Papa Bear got a catheter last August, he wanted to get back on that bicycle. But Roy and I were reluctant to see him do that. We finally persuaded him to wait until we could get a professional opinion from the physical therapist. When Michael came to evaluate Papa Bear, Roy kept pressing the therapist. Is it safe for him to get back on the bicycle? What do you say to other people in that situation? Michael pondered. At last he said, "Quite frankly, I don't think I've ever met a 96-year-old with a Foley catheter who wanted to get on a bicycle."
Children of the Heavenly Father, safely in his bosom gather, nestling bird nor star in heaven, such a refuge there was given. God his own doth tend and nourish, in his holy courts they flourish. From all evil things he spares them, in his mighty arms he bears them. Praise the Lord in joyful numbers, your protector never slumbers. At the will of you, defender, every foeman must surrender. Though he giveth or he taketh, God his children ne'er forsaketh. His the loving purpose solely, to preserve them pure and holy.
For better or for worse, Papa Bear was the one responsible for launching Roy into the rarefied air of climbing 14ers. It was probably late in 1958 when the family was living in Englewood, Colorado, and Papa Bear consented to let not quite 9-year-old Roy join a ragtag group of adults on a late-season assault of Long's Peak, considered one of the more difficult of Colorado's 14ers. It was a hike of approximately 6 miles up to a boulder field. In those days, the final arduous ascent to the summit was by a series of cables. It was a foggy, cold climb with zero visibility. Lines of people with freezing fingers inched their way up the cables. Roy now remembers with surprise that Papa Bear treated him with confidence, assuming that his son would do just fine. And Roy's been confidently climbing 14ers ever since, with and without Papa Bear. Over the decades, they have climbed 10 other Colorado 14ers together, several of them multiple times. The spring and summer of 1995 was a real opportunity for father-son bonding. For several years, Roy had been fantasizing about climbing 61 summits and traveling among them some 1,600 miles without using any motorized transportation. That was a rough period for Roy. He was facing a divorce, considering a career change, and feeling adrift spiritually. He decided he needed an enormous physical challenge, plus a spiritual pilgrimage. Papa Bear and the rest of the family could be at the sidelines to support him and cheer him on. The winter of 1994 to 1995 brought epic snows to the Colorado mountains. Roy's route had to be reworked as he checked snow conditions, and Papa Bear scouted access to trailheads. Roy didn't know if his plan was viable, but he arrived at our home in Buena Vista, determined to try. Papa Bear got out his tools, and together they began modifying Roy's bike to handle the equipment he would need for climbing, cycling, and camping. The bike, outfitted with 4 panniers, weighed about 80 pounds when fully loaded. After only 2 hours of sleep, we left Buena Vista at 2 a.m. on July 8 to drive him to the trailhead of Gray's and Torrey's Peaks. But what Roy remembers very vividly about that summer was one afternoon when Papa Bear, Aunt Esther, and I waited for him on the dirt road between Vicksburg and Winfield. That day, he climbed 4 mountains that were shoulder to shoulder and descended Oxford. To fulfill his ethic of not using any motorized transportation, he chose to walk 4 more miles to his bicycle and to the warm food that we'd brought him. "I'm walking with you," said Papa Bear. That father-son walk was a real morale booster for them both. As the days progressed, everybody's excitement increased. Roy was defying the difficulties, and we began to think that he might actually complete his Grand Slam. We dared to dream about the ending. Number 1s. Roy, Papa Bear, and I spent the night of August 7 at a campground near Long's Peak. Before dawn, Papa Bear and Roy set off for the long hike to the boulder field. There was a lot of snow and ice at the top of the mountain, and the wind was howling. Since Papa Bear didn't have crampons or an ice axe, Roy insisted that he stay at the Agnes Vale shelter below the summit. Papa Bear did 80% of the distance in the elevation, and he would have summited if conditions had allowed, Roy remembers. On the way back, he just flew down the trail. Long's Peak, 1958. Papa Bear and Roy's first 14er together. Long's Peak, 1995. Papa Bear and Roy conquer the last mountain together. Thank you. We don't know where Papa Bear got his love for pipe organs and organ music, but apparently he developed that love early in his life. Papa Bear bought vinyl records of pipe organ music that he and David wore out from constant use. When the family moved to Tacoma Park, Maryland in 1963, Papa Bear and Mama Bear asked the organ professor at Columbia Union College if he would teach David. When Donald Vaughn realized that David was fascinated not only by the music, but also by the instrument, he trained David as his assistant tuner. David admits that he didn't get much out of 8th grade because he had his nose in an organ building manual instead of in his textbooks. And that year, the uncle of one of his classmates offered to give David a 1937 Plymouth. Papa Bear, himself a fine mechanic, wasn't impressed. "You could probably lie in the mud for quite a while to get that car going," he said. But then he offered an alternative. "I've been thinking we should get a pipe organ that we could build into the house." Soon they learned that a church wanted to sell its pipe organ, a 3-rank Kilgan built in 1951, the year David was born. After some negotiating, the church agreed to accept $2,000 for the organ if David and Papa Bear would move it themselves. Papa Bear had to take out closets and walls to accommodate the console and the 365 pipes. While Papa Bear deconstructed the house, David took the organ apart. After 2 days of moving parts, David had to solder each connection back together, about 400 in all. He says he learned a lot about soldering. But Christmas morning, 1965, the organ was settled into the Hood Street house, and it had a big red bow on the console. Now David could practice anytime he had a few spare moments. And Papa Bear loved to come home and hear David playing Bach. And he was one very proud Papa Bear when his 14-year-old son got his first job as an organist at the Georgetown Baptist Church. Georgetown Baptist hired David to play a Hammond electronic instrument. Neither David nor Papa Bear could bear to call that an organ. But soon after he started playing there, David discovered that the sanctuary also had a 100-year-old pipe organ that was broken. Somebody had walked amongst the pipes and destroyed them. The father-son duo decided to secretly take on the project of repairing that historic organ. One Sunday, David shocked the parishioners by playing the organ that they had considered dead. Number twos. The great part of having a pipe organ in the house is that you can practice whenever. The bad part of owning such a bulky instrument is that you have to move it when you buy a new house. In 2007, Papa Bear and I flew from Colorado to West Virginia so Papa Bear could help with the 6th move. At that time, Papa Bear remarked, "I hope I don't live long enough to have to move that organ again." David met this Cassavant organ when he came out in 2018 to spend a few days with Papa Bear while I flew to a conference in San Diego. Cynthia got permission for him to do a private concert for Papa Bear right here. One of the pieces that he played was Psalm 19. It was always a favorite of Papa Bear's, and David played it at Papa Bear's and my wedding 39 years ago on New Year's Eve. He'll play it again today as our postlude.
Tells me that this poem by Sarah Teasdale fits Elvin perfectly. That she can see him in every line, except maybe for the first line. Though he appreciated the beauty of the sea and loved the salty air of the seashore, he did so with his feet firmly planted on solid ground. He was not a sailor. But that did not interfere with his hours at sea. And Sarah Teasdale writes, "I have loved hours at sea, great cities, the fragile secret of a flower, music, the making of a poem that gave me heaven for an hour, first stars above a snowy hill, voices of people kindly and wise, and the great look of love, long hidden, found at last in meeting eyes. I have loved much and been loved deeply. Oh, and my spirit's fire burns low. Leave me the darkness and the stillness. I shall be tired and glad to go."
few years back, I heard a preacher give a sermon on the Friday night of Easter weekend. The theme of his message about the death and resurrection of Jesus was this: "It's Friday now, but Sunday's a-coming." Well, for the last few days, really the last few months, I spent a lot of time in the darkness of Friday and Sabbath, with Sunday seeming a long way away. I don't want to sound ungrateful for the amazing number of years that we had with my dad and several others of his siblings, not Willis, but the others. Many of the offspring are here today. We had them for a good long time, and we are blessed. But death is not any joke. It's heartbreaking to witness up close the disintegration of a personality that you hoped would never change. So if you're stuck now, or have been when you've been confronted with pain and death, I'm going to try to channel the feeling of the dark middle stanzas of Abide With Me, except that I've converted the chords in the tune into a minor key.
Number ones. Where are my people? Here they are. World War II was not the most enjoyable period of Papa Bear's life, but it was an important time that most of the family doesn't know a great deal about, and that's why I'm including it today. It's hard to imagine graduating from 12th grade and being drafted immediately, but that's what happened to Papa Bear in 1943. That summer, he hung up his mortarboard, worked 70 hours a week in a furniture factory, and departed by train for Fort Hood, Nebraska. By August 12, he was a private in the United States Army. Elvin was sent to Camp Carson, Colorado, near Colorado Springs, to join a unit that was just being formed. The 109th Evacuation Hospital was unusual because the 39 male officers and 217 enlisted men went through their basic training together. This encouraged cohesion among the medical team, which helped to make it the evacuation hospital with the lowest mortality rate in the European theater. When they headed to Tennessee for maneuvers, they were joined by 40 female nurses. After a month of winter field work in frigid Tennessee, they awaited their orders. They set sail for the United Kingdom April 6, 1944, aboard the Aquitania, which had been retrofitted for a troop transport. By then it was no luxury passenger liner. Tiers of hammocks hung 4 high in vast open dormitories. Papa Bear told us about that North Atlantic crossing when he was seasick the entire trip. He did not love those hours at sea. Because their ship was capable of great speed, it was the last surviving 4-funneled ocean liner. They were traveling without military convoy, hoping to dodge the German subs that were causing chaos for the Allies. Mid-Atlantic, the alarms went off, summoning everyone to the decks. Just another life drill, the young soldiers muttered as they stood for hours outside in the freezing weather. Later, the British sailors, who were actually making the ship go, said they had never seen the turbines turning faster. But they outran and outmaneuvered a lurking German submarine, and they eventually landed safely in Scotland. Last week, Monty, now working in northern Germany, remembered that story when he wrote, "This morning I was sitting at my desk with Papa Bear's Leica camera in front of me when Dad called to tell me that Papa Bear had died. I looked out at the buildings where Hitler built the U-boat that nearly killed him and 6,000 others as they crossed the Atlantic. Our existence erased in that alternate universe." Like many of the greatest generation, for decades, Papa Bear didn't talk about his experiences in World War II. We found his letters home as we were plowing through things in our attic. He was a faithful correspondent, and Grandma Benton was a hoarder, so those letters were preserved. As I read through them, I watched a fresh-faced 18-year-old boy become a principled man. The early weeks in basic training were brutal, not because of the intense physical training, which he took in stride, but because his stance as a conscientious objector was unpopular. One sergeant was determined to break Elvin and the other Seventh-day Adventist boys in the outfit. Some weeks they were confined to quarters all day Saturday and then given the worst possible assignments on Sundays. They were threatened with court-martial, but they didn't stand down, and finally they were granted Sabbaths off. And interestingly enough, when the going got really rough in Europe, those same belittled conscientious objectors turned out to be the most dependable men in the outfit. I often wondered what Papa Bear was doing in the war, and I finally got him to describe it for me. He was working 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, taking care of patients in a 40-cot medical tent, often with artillery shells whizzing over his head. The 109th cared for more than 25,000 patients during their mobilization. The hospital followed Patton's Third Army across Europe, from Utah Beach through France, then Belgium, Germany, and Czechoslovakia. Papa Bear liked to pull night duty because if there weren't too many patients, he might snatch a few minutes to write a letter home. And if things weren't hot right then, after a few hours of sleep, he might find a farmer willing to barter eggs for soap or cigarettes. Papa Bear took his box camera to war. His mother sent him black and white film and developing chemicals and photo paper. When he was off duty, he'd develop and print photos in his pup tent. Number 2. This week, grandsons Jesse, curator of most of Papa Bear's war mementos, and Monty, family photographer, now living in Germany, put together 2 photos. The first, on the right, Papa Bear took at a citadel in Montmédy, France, about the time of his 20th birthday, the bitter winter of 1944 to 45. Last week, Monty visited Montmédy. He hadn't seen Papa Bear's 1945 photo, but he ended up taking the lovely colored photo from nearly the same spot. Seeing those photos side by side was surprisingly comforting to me. Papa Bear always said, even in wartime, I didn't hate the German people. I just hated the Nazi regime. And now his grandson is learning to love the country and the people that Papa Bear helped to liberate.
Will you bow your heads with me as we pray? O Lord, who changes not, abide with me. Abide with us, Lord. We are here celebrating Papa Bear. We celebrate a life well lived. We celebrate a role model to so many of us as family and friends, but so many others that we don't even know about. We celebrate a cheerleader to family and to friends alike. We celebrate a man of integrity, a man who loved God deeply. We will miss his dry humor, his Papa Bear-isms, most of all his warm hugs and his love to each of us. But may his faithful life encourage us to be faithful so that we can meet again when all things will be made new. So Lord, thank you for Papa Bear, for his life. And Lord, abide with us. In your name I pray. Amen.
Okay, number ones. Papa Bear had very definite ideas about music. He especially enjoyed unaccompanied male quartet singing. I once asked him to think about all the quartets that he had personally sung in, and we had a long conversation as we drove across South Park in Colorado. He counted a dozen organized quartets and several more impromptu ones that formed for a particular occasion, such as we had this afternoon. But the quartet he singled out as the most polished was the Standard Bearers at Union College. Apparently, male quartet singing was a competitive sport at Union. We were good, Pat Bear. We were good, he said. Of course, the Standard Bearers did have a couple of advantages. They had Wayne Hooper as baritone and Elvin Benton as bass. Take a close look at the photo. See what Jesse is wearing. Yes, it is the original, official tie of the 1949 Standard Bearers. When we were getting ready to move to Wheatland, we were sorting through his ties. As he was putting this one in the discard pile with a very large sigh, he identified it as his quartet tie. Believe it or not, people, I'm the one who moved it to save. I figured if he had protected it for that many years and it was that important to him, I wanted it to come to his memorial service. During his demise, it was difficult to find ways to reach Papa Bear. When David came from West Virginia last month, Roy played his guitar and the two sons sang. For quite a while, Papa Bear just sat in his little wheelchair with his eyes closed. And then he started feebly waving his hand in time with the music. If it was a song he particularly liked, he would try mouthing the words or sometimes actually singing the bass part. As they worked their way through the Voice of Prophecy songbook, we talked about our favorite hymns. After they sang Abide With Me, David mentioned that he preferred the version in the Anglican hymnal and said, the last stanza is included. It is not in the current Adventist hymnal. I think somebody didn't approve of the theology, but I like it. We were surprised, but we could tell that Papa Bear followed that conversation and that he agreed with David. So to end our service today, we're going to sing the Anglican stanza, knowing that Papa Bear, if not the Big B brethren, would approve.